What's up everybody, this is 13 with Superior Mobile by 13, and today I'd like to go over this little piece of artwork with you. What is that, you ask? This is the class project, the result of the Mobile Solutions Modern Fab Training Seminar that was held in, I believe, May of 2022 that I went to out in Arizona. So everybody in the class made one of these, and every single one of them is completely different. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you a little bit about the techniques that went into building this, and then what makes mine special to me. One thing about all of my designs and my color selections and my palette, if you will, is that I really like natural organic colors and shapes and textures. So almost all of this was designed around this color right here, this sort of dark foresty, muted, flat green. Almost everybody else in the class chose to wrap this panel right here in a black suede, and then it got laser engraved, as you can see there. And the black suede showed contrast really well, and I really was quite jealous of how good that looked on everybody else's. But I didn't want black suede. I chose to go around this foresty green color. Because I was following that color, I chose this brown, which is, I really love that brown too. It's a very good, rich earth tone. It's kind of like a chocolatey brown. Now, one thing that I didn't like from my project in the class was this piece right here, because this had to end up being spray painted, and I think if you know the type of work that I do, I don't like spray paint ever. So this ended up being spray painted a matte black in the class, which of course didn't look very good. And one of the reasons it took me so long to finally document this project, because that was several months ago, was because I had to rework a lot of this to make it up to my standard and up to something that I'd be proud to show off. So I sanded all of this down and body fillered it a little bit better, and then I did a base coat clear coat, so I now have this beautiful tan color, and it is a gloss finish, so you can see the reflection on it. The paint job came out really nice, and I think that is absolutely necessary to having this project look good, because now we have a balance of shiny and some matte and some muted tones, and I think that just pulls everything together a lot better. Another element that was student customizable were the inserts on the lower and the upper section here. So everybody else had acrylic inserts, these guys right here, and these were really cool because basically one of the class techniques was that we learned how to do like wood grain, or that bowling ball technique where you're doing the paint work on the back side, and then when you peel off the front on this, it looks really pretty, and that insert would go in there. So I wanted to do something a lot different, and on this situation what I chose to do was an aluminum pressed grill insert. This was a lot harder than just taking this piece of acrylic and pressing it in there. I had to make a custom jig. As you can see, that is just slightly pressed in. This section right here was actually really hard. And then there's this whole black acrylic ring that actually trims out and makes sure that you don't see the exposed edges of that pressed grill. And I think that this collectively as a design works really nicely. Of course, it didn't get done until 2 months after the class, but that's not the point. A little bit about some of the techniques that we learned and implemented on this project in that class. You can see the entire thing has a huge bevel to it. That is done on the Animal, which is a tool that I did not own prior to that class, and then I purchased it afterwards, so now I can do those large contour curves or sweeps or whatever you want to call them. There is this little fading round over right here, this cove if you will, and it flushes out up on top, and then it grows, and then it fades again on the other side, again because that whole thing slopes downwards. It's a three-dimensional shape is the goal. This entire inserted piece, of course, that's got a beautiful compound curve to it. This is really pretty. Those are great techniques. They're fairly labor intensive, but when executed correctly, they're absolutely worth the extra money. I've already covered the fact that this is just laser engraved, so that's not nearly as cool as I'd like it to be, because it's just, in my opinion, something that you hit print on a computer and the result is cool, but the technique behind it isn't exactly that fascinating. Ultimately, a lot of the big focus is on just fit and finish, so all of the seams are incredibly tight, and that can be accomplished fairly easily with computers nowadays, with CNCs and laser machines. However, I only have a router table and my hands, so I can achieve almost the same level of accuracy, usually down to about a 32nd, maybe sometimes a 64th of an inch accuracy, depending on the material that I'm working with. But those classes definitely help with kind of setting the record straight as to how you can pull things off. Again, fit and finish, we're just talking about making sure that things look good from all angles, and this is what this is. Now, I chose on this particular project just to throw some spade terminals onto the end of these wires so that I can just connect a battery to it. What I really wanted to do was actually just put a wall wart on the thing, but I don't have one of those hanging around right now, so I just didn't feel like buying one. It's just, I like this thing, but I don't actually like it that much. I'd already spent a lot of money on that class, and this was my only takeaway, and I wasn't happy with this, and so I was kind of trying not to spend any more unnecessary funds on this project. One thing that I absolutely had to change out, though, was this guy. This is an Arduino. So that class had an entire day dedicated to learning lighting technology and how all of the top people in the 12-volt industry are utilizing lighting. So I yanked this module out, and I replaced it with a very simple, basic, affordable LED hue Bluetooth-controlled module, and that just tucks in there as well. So once I connect the battery, as you can see, the LEDs behind the scenes start to kick on and the light shines through that acrylic panel that wherever it is laser cut. This is just that simple $15 controller. I didn't have to do any programming whatsoever, so the idea of using Arduino just to accomplish the exact same thing doesn't make a whole lot of sense in my mind. The sales pitch there is that Arduino is capable of so much more, and it absolutely is. I used to play with Arduinos back in college over 10 years ago, and I know what they're capable of. But if I'm just trying to make some LEDs dance around to make a customer happy, there is no way that I am going to start programming stuff on a computer to accomplish that end. But this is the result of all of that work and skill and technique, and I gotta say, it looks really cool. I'm excited about placing this into my showroom. Ultimately, I don't think anyone fully understands what goes into these things, but that's part of the appeal, is that it's just something that looks pretty, and you go, ooh, ah, how do I get something like that incorporated into the trunk of my car? And I could log into the app on my phone and showcase to you how I control these LEDs. It gets a lot cooler than this, but as far as something that just hangs out in the showroom and shows people like, ooh, blinky lights, I think it's going to do a really great job. The real takeaway after that class was that I took on a door panel fabrication project, which I still haven't edited and posted that video because unfortunately I have to redub the entire audio for the entire thing because it came out all functified. So when I post that video, hopefully you'll understand why I spent an absolutely ridiculous amount of money to basically just kind of get kicked in the butt and said, hey, you haven't built anything cool in a while, so why don't you get on it? And I did. That's going to be another video coming up shortly, but until then, I am super stoked to have finally finished this, get this off my bucket list, and move on with my life and move on to the next project. So, as always, thanks for watching, guys. This is 13 with Superior Mobile by 13. See ya!